Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cast. Guys, I have been on hiatus for quite some time, and I know my bar players have been missing me. Now, I know I have been getting the messages, I've been getting the memos, I've been getting the nasty, emotionally charged emails with, you know, loaded language and other insults of varying degrees about my, birthplace and country of origin and things of all that nature. I know that everyone has been very angry with me for not making these casts, and my community was on the verge of just grabbing some torches and pitchforks and burning my house down. So I get it. I understand. Say no more. You guys wanted some bar content, and here I am to provide you some bar content. You don't deserve it. Okay, threats of physical violence are never okay. But anyway, this is going to be an epic game, I think. And two of our best players, we have Raghna and Teddy. Now, Teddy is one of the top players. I think he's won at least a couple tournaments. And Raghna is he's a longtime player too, but he's actually a developer as well, which sort of gives him an unfair advantage. So I fully expect that as the game progresses and Raghna starts to lose, he will enable the cheat codes and start giving himself unfair advantages. So you as the viewers, I really hope that let's keep an eye out for that. We gotta keep Raghna honest. It's not fair to be a developer and you can just activate the cheat codes anytime you want when you're losing. Teddy is a good player, but come on, Raghna, let's have a fair match. Let's have a clean match. Touch gloves and all that. The map is called Silent Sea, and speaking of this is a cool freaking map. Look at it, man. Look at how well designed this is. You got the beautiful water. Look at this. This is just gorgeous. This map is really something. And wait, isn't there a way to? Oh my god. You guys didn't see that. You didn't see that. Okay. But yeah, look at the terrain here. Really, really pretty. And of course, the terrain is about to be battered and bruised and beaten by all sorts of explosions and robot artillery and every other kind of carnage and chaotic action that you can imagine. Already we have the spectators giving their unwanted opinions. How about you spectators just stop talking? We don't care about what you have to say. But anyways, back to the game. I love these water maps because I think it just creates such interesting gameplay mechanics. Now, this is a true water map. There's no land bridge or shallows to get from one player's base to another, and so the players will be relying on either hovercrafts or boats or air. I'm assuming there'll be some air in this game as well, that you could transport units across the way in that manner if you so desired. To be honest, like a map like this is really hard to navigate in a 1v1 because your opponent has so many different options for how they can attack you, and it's very difficult to defend against all of them. We don't get to see as much naval play and escalation, and so I think this is going to be awesome. This is going to be an awesome 1v1. Two very high-level players. Raghna starting core, and he, of course, will go K-bot first, building some AKs. And his opponent, Teddy, Arm, also going K-bot, and sending his commander into the sea here to grab a metal spot. So here at the beginning, not too much action, but I fully expect that both of these players are going to be doing some very cheeky things in the near future, and maybe some hovercrafts, some boats. Someone in the spectator chat saying poison arrows. The poison arrow is a core heavy amphibious tank. We never see those very often. They're a very strange sort of unit, but they're quite powerful, and it would be awesome if we got to see one of those in this game. But okay, so Raghna immediately going for some bombers. So Raghna has made his choice. He is not going to go into the water just yet. He is going to go for the air play, and that will perhaps give him an advantage. Teddy does have a couple missile towers already built, and it seems that Teddy has decided that he's going to go into hovers. And so our blue player is going air and our red player is going hovers. And this is just a very strange sequence of events. This is not something you see very often in 1v1s at all. Now the interesting thing about air is you can also build a transport. You can transport land units. Obviously you can transport your commander. It's pretty risky. But this will open up quite a few avenues for our blue player here, who is now sending 3 bombers to his opponent's side with a scout there in the lead, and he will see these missile turrets. So Teddy is at least somewhat prepared for this epic bombing attempt. It will take out a few wind generators, which is nothing to scoff at. However, I don't think Raghna quite getting the damage that he wanted to get done here. He's killed some wind generators. He's done some economic damage, but he is by no means crippled Teddy's economy whatsoever. However, this part of the island doesn't have any air defense, so he will get a free bombing run on that mechs. And we'll have to see what else you can try to get with this single bomber. Flying in to get another mechs. So, honestly, he's doing a decent job. There wasn't enough air defense on the west side of Teddy's island. And with his death, he will take out a third mech. So ultimately, Raghna did get a decent amount of economic damage done. Nothing game ending, but certainly respectable. And that will put Teddy at least a little bit behind. I don't know why Teddy pinged this. I might have missed something. But in any case, Teddy with his hovercrafts, his Seekers, which are fast attack hovercrafts, these hovercraft don't do much damage. They're the hovercraft scout, if you will. They do have a small weapon. So they are good at harassment. They are good for raiding. They're not so great for combat. They really need to try to catch like constructors out on their own. This is kind of ideal. But as you can see, they don't really do that much damage. They basically have like a Jeffy weapon. Or a vehicle scout weapon. It's very weak. But they're very mobile, they're very fast. And this one will pay the iron price. Raghna has now entered the sea. He just finished his first Riptide, which is an assault frigate. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Actually, it looks like he's been in the sea for a while. I've been paying attention to other things. So he's got quite an army, or a naval armada already. And yeah, he must have reclaimed his air plant to go straight into water. And with that, he has built a nice little fleet here that will sort of snake its way through Teddy's upper island. This little impasse in the middle. And see what kind of damage he can get done. These assault frigates don't have a huge range, but they can shell the shoreline to some degree. Not as much as a destroyer, but it's respectable. He can get some damage done. He took out some more wind generators. And so far in this game, Raghna really has been the aggressor. He's really been the one putting the pressure on his opponent. Teddy, of course, has had a few hovercrafts come over, but nothing of substance. And now Raghna reclaiming his shipyard, going straight into an amphibious complex, which, truth be told, is a sort of an interesting choice. But hold that thought, because now Teddy coming in with some hovercrafts. Raghna building a coral, a floating heavy laser tower to try to repel this. And it will repel this, at least for now. Now, the amphibious complex is interesting because it's, well, hold that thought. Here at the top, there is a, this naval attack has continued moving forward. However, Teddy has built a couple eels, a couple of submarines, if you can see here. And these things are quite vicious. They're lurking just beneath the surface. And none of Raghna's army had any underwater defense. There was no... I don't think the assault frigates get any kind of depth charges or torpedoes. But back to what I was saying about the amphibious complex. This thing is very interesting because it's not quite a T2. It's not like a T2 plant. It's kind of like a T1.5. But it can build T2 units. It builds only amphibious units that can walk on land. I mean, I guess that's included in amphibious, but it's basically building land units that you would normally get out of a factory or a K-bot lab. So it is an interesting structure. You don't see it very often. I don't think it costs quite as much as a T2 lab. It's like I said, it's more of like a T1.5 lab. And interestingly, he will build a couple units out of this and then reclaim it and go back into shipyard tech. So interesting choice from our blue player. And now these the poison arrow, which one of the spectators mentioned earlier, and the alligator will make landfall, and these can be pretty devastating. The poison arrow is sort of like an amphibious Goliath. It's like an amphibious, very heavy tank the core has, and huge range. Even I wasn't aware that the range is a little bit ridiculous. Yeah, someone in the spectator chat saying this is so OP. I tend to agree. I've never actually seen one of these in a real game. So this is a bit of a treat. This poison arrow not messing around at all. And I think it's caught Teddy a little bit off guard, because you just don't see these poison arrows very often, despite the fact that it's a pretty impressive unit. But what is Teddy doing to counter? Let's take a look at his base here. Okay, he's on T2 K-bots. So that is Teddy's next move, is going to T2 K-bots. It sort of makes sense. With T2 K-bots, he can defend his island a little better. Building some Fidos right now. The mortar skirmish K-bot. These are pretty good in this kind of situation. If he kites them well enough, he might be able to take out this poison arrow. But remember, the hound is not amphibious, and so he can use this poison arrow to sort of submerge himself in and out of the water, and that will prevent Teddy from being able to hit him with those hounds. Let's see, building a platypus. So really interesting strategy, but man, Raghna with this one poison arrow just being so annoying. It's already got 15 kills. This thing is a raid boss. It is just disgusting right now. And Teddy just not really dealing with it that well. This thing has just been such a nuisance. And in the meantime, Raghna with a single orca submarine. Let's see what he's doing back at his base. It looks like he's just building more submarines. While in the meantime, still taking care of all the things in his base. So it does look like he finally did kill the poison arrow, but so much damage has already been done to his economy, as you can see. All these metal spots have been destroyed, all the mexes. And Raghna moving through with some submarines as well to take out his underwater mexes. And so economically, it feels like Teddy has just been harassed very much throughout this game, but he's surprisingly doing okay despite that. Economically, they're still somewhat even. So Teddy very good with his macro game, even when he's behind. It's a sign of a good player if you're under constant pressure and you can still keep up economically. He will send a couple of these platypuses through to Raghna's side, but Raghna does seem prepared for this attack. And ultimately, those platypus will not accomplish too much. So the only saving grace for Teddy in some way is that there was a lot of metal donated. So all these corpses, all the ships, the poison arrow corpse, all this stuff, he will be able to reclaim that for metal, and that will give him a decent economic boost, at least for now. But also, Teddy has more wind generators, so that may be giving him a slight advantage economically too. He's got more energy. In bar, you can... this is true of TA as well. You can convert energy into metal. So if you have enough wind generators, they will be a good source of metal for your army. But ultimately, both players have sort of slowed down. I think they're teching up, trying to figure out their next move or their next strategy to find a way to come out on top of their opponent. Another thing that Teddy's doing that's helped him are these advanced metal extractors, the Moho mines here. This is going to give him a decent economic advantage as well. And so Raghna is falling behind here. Raghna has no Mohos at all. So economically, he is actually behind, even though he did a ton of damage on Teddy's island. Teddy was he was upgrading his metal that whole time. So you can't count Teddy out. Like I said, the sign of a good player is that even when they're under pressure, they can adapt and they can continue growing their eco and staying in the game. You must always find a way to stay on par with your opponent, especially with someone like Raghna, who's being very aggressive. So Teddy, even though Raghna was aggressive and he had the poison arrow, which he was using very well, he did an amazing job of holding on and upgrading his mexes, and now is even ahead economically quite considerably, because Raghna still has not upgraded a single mex, even though he's on T2. Of course, he did just get to T2 recently, so he's still taking some time, I think. But hold that thought, because Teddy is bringing in a few platypus here in the south part of Raghna's island. And Raghna has upgraded his first Moho. He will use his commander to try and stop this attack. And it does look like he will eventually get it. So, again, very well played by both players here. But I'm still a little amazed that Teddy, despite all that pressure and losing half of his island, basically half of his main island was destroyed, he still kept up with his eco and is now in the lead. In fact, can't, as one of the spectators is pointing out, can't even use his metal. He is floating 5,000 metal, so Teddy really needs to find something to dump his economy into. You don't want to waste metal in bar. He's now building a metal storage to try to help him, at least for now. But, instead of building a metal storage, it would be better to actually pump it into something. He's building some amphibious rolling bombs. Trying to think what he could build. He could go into T2 Naval. T2 Naval is extremely metal heavy. If you wanted to spend it on that, that's always an option. He could go hovercraft, I guess. There's some hovercraft that are extremely or that are somewhat expensive. He could go a second. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess he could go a gantry, but maybe it's a little early in the game to go T3. Probably doesn't have the economy to support that just yet. But still, he's not using his metal. He is just floating a ton of resources. And that is sort of giving Raghna a chance to get back into this game. Because if Teddy were using all of his resources right now, he might just be able to crush Raghna completely. Like if he was on T2 Air and building some atomic bombers, or if he was building T2 Naval. I think he's a little bit... It seems like he's a little hesitant to go into Naval because he knows Raghna has a lot of submarines sort of floating around the ocean here. Teddy is now dumping a lot of his resources into this fusion, which will hopefully solve his energy problems momentarily. But Raghna's done a nice job of building this line of mines. I don't know if Teddy is aware that they're there, but it kind of feels like he does know because he just walked around them as if he was aware of them. However, Raghna does have a nice line of LLTs, and these will offer a nice defense here. So, again, Teddy's still not using his metal completely. Once he finishes this fusion, hopefully he goes into heavy production of something. He has just finished a T1 shipyard, and let's assume that he's going to go for T2 ships. That would make the most sense. If he goes for T2 ships, those are extremely metal heavy. There's the Black Hydra. There's the battleship as well. Many T2 ships that can be quite expensive, and might give Teddy a chance to actually use his resources. He's built a mobile anti-nuke here. He's assuming that Raghna may have gone into nukes. To be honest, Raghna's not really using his metal as well as I'd like to see either. At this point, he's just building T1 bombers. T1 bombers are fine, but for 23 minutes into the game, it's really not what you expect to see. This is not really a game-ending strategy. You know, he might be able to get some harassment done and economic damage, but really he's not going to be able to win the game with just T1 bombers. I'd really like to see him dump his metal into something. And Teddy also moving with his platypus. So we'll have to see what Raghna does here. Moving through with some bombers. And he is getting a little bit of economic damage done, but this ultimately doesn't seem like it accomplished much. I didn't think it would accomplish much. It's again, it's not a very big commitment for someone that making 73 metal a second to just build some T1 bombers. This is just a little disappointing, I think. I mean, maybe Raghna just trying to keep him on his toes, but ultimately he was never going to win the game with just T1 bombers. Finally, Teddy going into T2 shipyards, and he will eventually be able to spend his metal once he gets this up. So it is nice to see that Teddy is finally making a big investment into his future, hopefully. Raghna, however, still on T1. This is just not good enough. What Raghna's doing here is just not really... I really feel like Raghna's not committing to any strategy here. He's being very indecisive. He's still got a T1 aircraft plant. He's building a second fusion. But he's not really committing to a winning strategy like this. He cannot end the game with T1 ships. There's no way at this point that this will ever win. All he's doing is just trying to survive, but this is not playing to win. This is just playing not to lose. Raghna just kind of playing not to die at this point, where Teddy actually has a strategy. Hopefully we start to see some battleships and flagships and maybe some longbows as well. A lot of good options in the T2 naval factory that can sort of give the players a nice advantage over their opponents. So I'm sure Teddy, once he has the metal, will probably start into production. But Raghna still on T1 ships, still trying to upgrade his eco slowly. And he has surpassed Teddy. He does have a lot of T1 ships here, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. The problem is Teddy can simply avoid him until he has, for example, some cruisers. He's building a Paladin right now. So all Teddy has to do is simply avoid Raghna until he has a superior army. And then he's just going to use his platypus to invade the southeastern island. And here you can sort of see the battle at a glance. Teddy having a superior force on the sea, but just using it a bit more effectively. Splitting up his army, avoiding a fight with Raghna. Raghna doing a good job, though, of building some mines here. And that will at least slow down that force. But it won't stop it completely. As a couple do survive, but it looks like Raghna does finish them off with these LLTs and his commander. And now Teddy finally spamming out the T2 ships, which are just going to be, I assume, game-ending. Teddy having a very game-ending sort of strategy with T2 ships. Raghna has also gone into T2 and is finally building a Despo. The core T2 battleship, originally called the Warlord. So this will keep him in the game, at least for now, but one Despo, unfortunately, will not be enough, I think. If Teddy takes his entire armada and attacks, I think he can win this battle. He's got quite an impressive force, building more cruisers up at the top here. Building a Juno as well. But, Raghna's army is nothing to scoff at. And remember, Teddy does not have perfect information like we do. So he can't know that his army is superior, or that his navy is superior. He can't know that. But it is superior. However, Raghna kiting pretty well. But yeah. The problem is Teddy continuing to harass him. He's got a much better map position. And Raghna pushing through. I do feel like if Teddy were to commit to an attack here, he would win that. But he is retreating his force, perhaps trying to catch him here at the cove, catch him here at the choke point. I do think Teddy's army is superior, though. I do think he wins a head-on engagement, and here we're about to see that. Raghna does have the single battleship, however, Teddy has all these hovercraft and the cruisers. The cruisers are dead now, but they did their job, and now that that battleship will die, so pretty evenly matched, but ultimately Teddy has a slightly better naval force. That's a Juno rocket right there. And this is the problem with only building battleships. You need to have an escort. Of course, he did have the destroyers before. But in direct naval battles, you know, cruisers are hard to beat, and now Teddy has his own battleship. So cruisers and battleships together are nigh unstoppable naval force. They can deal with just about anything in the water. And then you just need a couple of flak ships to deal with the air, and then you just become quite overpowered in the sea. And so now with the dreadnought on the field, it feels like Raghna is in serious trouble. I honestly feel like Teddy reaching T2 first made a big difference here. He committed to this plan of T2 naval much more quickly than his opponent. Of course, Raghna was still attempting to build up his eco. That's understandable, because he was a little bit behind. Teddy did get an advantage early. Man, these naval battles are just so fun to watch. It's so impressive. And it's amazing to me. I don't know why Teddy's splitting his army like this. You know, once again, I feel like if he were to just combine all of his forces, he would easily win. But now Raghna is on 4 battleships. And he's got some mines as well in the water. So this is quite an impressive naval engagement. But Teddy just using his hovercraft to avoid the fight altogether and try to get some economic damage done here on the land. However, Raghna's got some pretty nice pop-up artillery. He's got Scorpion, the Twin Guard. He will be able to push this back. And with that, I think it's strange. I think Teddy, if he had committed to an attack just a couple minutes ago, Raghna had very little left here, and he could have just destroyed his shipyard and taken over the sea, but Teddy has been pretty indecisive. Of course, like I said, the players do not have perfect vision like us. They can't see exactly what's going on. So Teddy did not know that Raghna pretty much had nothing left after that fight here in the middle. And Teddy probably could have taken him out of the sea completely, but instead he sort of tried to avoid Raghna's fleet. And as a result, Raghna is now on 7 battleships here. However, Teddy is now moving into T2 air, and that is quite an impressive option. I mean, that's a good possibility for Teddy to maybe get control over the sea once again. He could go into torpedo bombers, he could go into nuclear bombers. He could just go into strategic bombers. He could go into gunships, or let's see what else. EMP bombers, even gunships or heavy gunships. Lots of options. But now Raghna has some messengers, and Raghna is going to start sending a message to his opponent. And to be honest, this surprises me, man, because Teddy was in complete control of the game. Economically, he was way ahead. He had the superior naval force. He was on T2 for much longer than Raghna. T2 naval. And when he killed most of Raghna's fleet in the middle, he could have taken him out of the water, but because he lacked scouting information, because he had not really built enough scouts, he has allowed Raghna back into the game here. And Raghna's starting to look unstoppable with these battleships everywhere. Just inflicting massive carnage on his opponent. Finally, Teddy will attempt to react here. He needs to kill this messenger very badly. But all these battleships shelling him from a huge range, and Teddy simply does not have doesn't have what it takes, I think, at this point. Now the messengers shelling the shore from afar. Teddy he had a huge advantage. It just felt like he was unbeatable. But he just let Raghna build 8 battleships, or however many. Yeah, someone in the chat saying Teddy too sleepy, and I actually agree with that. Teddy did not push his advantage when he had it, and he had a huge advantage. And now the game looking quite dire for our red player. But that just goes to show, guys, how important information is in Beyond All Reason and Total Annihilation. Knowing is half the battle. If Teddy had known that his naval force was that superior to Raghna's, he could have easily won the game. But he overestimated his opponent's strength, and he underestimated his own strength. And now Teddy will go up. So that was an amazing game. Very well played by both players. I really thought Teddy had it in the bag. And he certainly was ahead very much in the mid-game. But ultimately, Raghna sort of mind-gamed him. Raghna sort of, kept him on his toes. Made him play very defensively. Caused him to kind of be a little too skittish. Be a little too indecisive, and ultimately that allows Raghna to come back into the game. And as you can see here, just looking at the graphs, Teddy was ahead. He started being ahead around the 10-minute mark, and then was the most ahead around this point. This is, I guess, metal used. active units. See what I'm talking about right here? This was the point right here. 2903. Teddy had a huge advantage. Army-wise. Big advantage he could have pushed right here. But this was the point. This was around the time that Raghna just pulled way too far ahead. So guys, that was an interesting game. Teddy could have won, but Raghna simply outplaying him, using the mind games, and ultimately coming out on top. I hope you enjoyed this cast, everybody, and I will see you again on the next video.